Hi, everybody. We have a pleasure today to introduce ourselves and our project, which we implemented at European University in St. Petersburg. I'm Anna Temkina, professor of public health and gender, working in the Department of Sociology Gender Program. And we implement this project together with Daria Litvina, and she will introduce herself now.
Yes, so my name is Dasha, or Daria Litvina. I'm a research fellow at the Faculty of Sociology at the European University at St. Petersburg. And we would like to start with some details about the project that we have launched this March. Maybe I shall start, or you'll just briefly introduce the idea.
Yes, we plan to organize our today presentation in the following way. First, we would like to introduce our project and to tell a bit about some results of this project. Dasha will speak first, and then I will continue. But then we choose some issues for discussion, maybe in dialogue between us, which we consider important in this project. And these are ethical dimension of it, methodological issue of this project, specificity of participants of this project who are academic researchers, mostly in social science and humanities, and also the question is, what is special for Russia? What is special for Russia in global world, which as a whole was faced with quarantine, self-isolation, and pandemic situation. So this is our plan. And now I will give floor to Dasha, who will begin to introduce our project.
Thank you very much. So the name of our project is Virus Diaries, Chronicles of Everyday Life. The project was launched in March of this year during the pandemic, and it is aimed at creating a database of diaries in which researchers with sociological or other academic background are fixing their everyday life and reflections on its change. So as I said, the project started in the middle of the March, and it lasted up to 10th of June. So right now we're finalizing our database and are ready to start analyzing and give you some preliminary ideas on that. So during this period, 34 people from 10 countries participated in the project. Most of the participants are living in Russia, mostly in St. Petersburg and Moscow. Others are from Australia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, Germany, USA, France, Finland, and Sweden. All of the participants are Russian-speaking researchers from such academic fields as sociology, philosophy, philology, anthropology, and others. There are 8 men and 26 women of different age groups and professional statuses, from PhD students to professors. And most of the participants are living in nuclear families without children. Nearly 16 people. The rest live with children, 5 of them, and in extended families or individual households, those 2 groups are also 6 people. So as I said, the project was aimed at collecting research diaries, and when we launched the project, it appeared that those research diaries are very close in their format to personal diaries, so we didn't have a narrow focus and strict rules. Therefore, every diary is an individual project which reflects an after visions on what's going on in his or her country, in his or her environment, and the genre of the text is something in between personal diaries and research tools. So I think this is would be the short description of what kind of database we have, and now we will move on and speak more about what is inside those diaries.
Okay, so thank you, Daria, so much. And so we collected more than 30 diaries of academic background persons in 10 countries, Russian speakers, with one exception. So what we found? Of course, this data analysis just only began because we just finished collection of diaries and data, and now we should think a lot about this. So this is a work in progress. But what we nevertheless already found. First of all, there was, of course, reflected dynamic in these diaries and more or less typical story, which was reflected day by day, that first people, we also participate in this project with Dasha. So first, we were suspicious. We did not believe in the threat connected to these pandemic conditions. Then there was like stage or phase when we, no, let me say, believe in this threat, and then there were a lot of new rules, a lot of new rules emerge, and we began to understand, to create this rule, what we should do, how we should do, what we should behave. Should we stock food? Should we reorganize our working place? Should we reorganize children? What we should do with our parents? And so on and so on. Numerous questions, and among them is the question, of course, of wearing masks, using sanitizers, and so on. Then, in several weeks, more routine behavior was fixed by participants. In maybe more than 1 month or month and a half, everything became much more routine. So we just do this. And participants sometimes wrote in their diaries, nothing happened. Everything is the same. And finally, our final stage was oriented toward fixation of some kind of decline of pandemic condition or end of quarantine or of self-isolation. Even we still do not know, and our participants do not know. Is this the end, or it is just some kind of decline? It's very ambivalent feeling right now, which are described in our diaries. So what's happened? To say it briefly, it was the break of the most important life coordinates, which is space and time. And so in all our diaries, we read that temporality changes and space changed. And temporality for majority or maybe even for role participant was like very strange. Time became very strange. The feeling, they write, just that there is no time at all, that it became like very flexible, that we lost time, that we have no time, and so on. So it's like we began to struggle with time. Time changed a lot, and we lost control over our time. Second is space. Also, both public and private space were organized. Public space became riskier. There is a threat in public, and public was shift to private, and our private fears and private anxiety shift to public. And so we reorganize everything. We reorganize our public, moving in public spaces, doing something in public spaces, but the same was in our private, where majority or maybe even all our participants were in some kind of self-isolation, mostly working distantly, teaching, doing research, or ending their PhD dissertation, or whatever. And so there was also the issue of reorganization of private space for them or for us, because we together, both of us, wrote diaries too. So we we are also participant. Next, under this reorganization of the basic human conditions, which is time and space, we found in preliminary analysis of data a lot of emotions within this. Emotions, different emotions, positive also, but mostly emotions connected to guilt, shame, fear, anxiety, depression, and so on. And so I would like to say a few words about shame or guilty. This is not important now, the difference, of course, they are different, but we all wrote something, sometimes a lot, about our guilty or feeling of shame. So why? And this is the moral emotion. This is emotion which include evaluation. And so there were different situations or different dimension in which we feel this moral emotion of guilty, blame, yes, blame when we try to fulfill our so-called protocol of safety or reduction of risk. But there are a lot of conditions, a lot of situations where we overcome this rule. For example, when we call cleaner in our home, or when somewhere without sanitizers, or doing something which we ourselves consider that we should not do, but nevertheless we overcome these rules. And then there is the feeling of guilty when we overcome rule of safety. Then we also feel moral emotion and write about this moral emotion, uh, uh, we, uh, which are connected to the balance of roles, private and public, because majority of us with children or with parents had to intensify their domestic duty. But children are at home, or those who we care about, but at the same time, you should work at home too. And so this combination, organizing from one side your relatives, caring about relatives 24 hours, 7 days, and the same is with work. Intensification of all our duties. And we do not manage very often. Somebody suffer or our work or our persons around us, and so we also blame ourselves that we could not balance these roles which are all together at our home 24 hours per day. And what is one more dimension is that we as scholars, as academic researcher, found ourselves in the situation when it is very difficult to work. It's very difficult to be creative. It's very difficult to write articles, to teach, to implement projects. And there is a lot of reflection on the subject in our diaries, that we blame ourselves that we are not enough effective. No, let me say that we blame ourselves that we are not enough neoliberal subject who work intensively, who care intensively, and so on. And so we found a lot of situation which directly connect to ourselves. This is like we found other within ourselves, and we struggle with this other, we negotiate with this other, and this led us to some preliminary conclusion that there is a lot of negotiation within these texts and within, no, as they reflect our or construct our life. And so this is negotiation with partners, this is negotiation with children, this is negotiation about organization of time and space. And the most important thing, I guess, and I will end with this argument, that we negotiate with ourselves and with condition, with pandemic condition. So we try to solve this problem, but it's very difficult. And so we negotiate this important social dimension. And maybe Dasha want to add something to this story
Uh,
shortly.
I think if we want to move forward towards ethics, I would like to add that we're using this "we" term because we are ourselves have also participated in project writing those diaries and discussing them a lot. So maybe I should say a couple of words about the ethics of the project before we will move on. All of the participants have equal rights and access to those data, and we see this project as an example of this big collective project with horizontal relationships between the participants. We personally also have been writing our diaries and putting them into the database. I think that uh, beyond those topics which Anna has already mentioned, there is also a lot to think about in terms of methodology of this project. As I said in the very beginning, this is those diaries are something in between personal diaries and research diaries. And when we started to get the first texts, we realized that there is so much to learn about what a research diary is, because every single paper is a very personalized, very unique document which reflects author's positions, his or her points of view, and visions. So I think that this project would contribute to methodological discussions on research. On diary methodology in future, and also I think that there is a lot of important things that we can get deeper into. One of those things is that as we said, all of the participants are Russian-speaking people who are located in different countries, and we see that while the ontology of their being, the time of quarantine, the situation, the environments, the conditions of work are very, very different. There are some emotional patterns that are pretty much the same in every case. So I think this is another topic that we will have to think about in future, and to think about sociology of emotions and the ways emotions are being lived in different contexts in different countries by people with similar academic and um, national backgrounds. So maybe
Okay. Mhm.
yes. I think we should better talk in. We have 10 minutes left, so maybe we'll just move forwards and talk in the format of dialogue, so that it would be
Okay,
more.
so there is two issues for us to discuss more. First is peculiarities of participants. Yes, what is special? All world right now writing diaries, and we consider that we have very special community, very special diaries. And Dasha already told that this is not just diaries. I will consider this something in between sociological diaries, as we wrote a lot when we do observation, and autoethnography. But my question is to Dasha, maybe right now, what do you think is the most specific for our participant? What is their difference? As they all are academic, social and humanities, those people who trained to be reflexive about cultural and social conditions. What do you think is special in it?
Well, I think we have a lot of evidence on how people create their class identities in our diaries, because we see that they do it by a certain type of consumption, certain type of communication, and producing others. In the environment, so I think we have actually have very specific people as our participants, and uh, I think that this is not something new. I think we have already mentioned it, that these are the people who are reflexive about their everyday lives, but at the same time, we see that there is a lot of things that remain unreflexive, that just remain a raw emotion, or that remain um, unconsciously being written, and this kind of things. I think methodologically it's very hard to understand what kind of material we have actually got. Why do people participate in this project? What do they want to say? Because if we move beyond those personal or research diaries, these are not just personal research diaries, but these are the diaries that have been written for another person, for another people of your kind. So I think that this is just another thing we have to take care of, to think of, because this is something that those people, for some reason, those people participated in the project. And I think that this project is not just a database, but it's also a platform for communication and strengthening solidarity within our community. And another question is, how do we show ourselves to our community? Why do we show ourselves this way? And what did we want to get back when we did this showing off? I think these are important questions, and this is a unique material to address those questions.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. And I only would like to stress a bit that we are privileged group. Even there are a lot of stories about our suffering, emotional suffering, and so on. But of course, majority of us live in their own apartments or rented apartments, but nevertheless, they are either single or with their partner and children, but this is more or less suitable condition. Majority of us has work, even maybe it is contract work and also with some vulnerability, but it is work which could be done distantly. Participants reflect on this privilege. They understand that there are a lot of less privileged people around, but nevertheless, this is still a lot of emotional problems negotiating with surrounding condition and ourselves. And this I also consider to be very important. And maybe our last but not least, very important dimension, what is special in Russia? Because we told that we have 10 countries from United States to Australia, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, uh, and others. And to my mind, it's very interesting that there are differences and similarities. From one side, of course, conditions in every country are different. Regime of security were different, and people react differently to this different condition. More rigid, less rigid, regulated, more dangerous, less dangerous, and so on. Of course, there is also different relation to politics. In one case, people blame their states and their officials for condition of pandemic, reaction to pandemic. In another cases, they support government and government politics. But it seems to me that general reflection, if I can say in such way, was approximately the same. And it is much more depend on is this person single or with partner or with children or with parents, then where he or she is in the United States, in Russia, in different cities in Russia, or in Australia. So let me say that private domestic organization, to my mind, what was not least important than differences, political, institutional difference around people. So in a sense, we're all the same, but we're living in a different conditions. And Daria maybe have another opinion.
Yeah, I think that we have seen some examples of people who feel themselves precarious because we have this maybe generation gap because there are people who are, for example, PhD students who are stuck in another country, or just people who are in postdoc positions who are also stuck without projects or without any job, and they feel themselves precarious, but they still reflect that they have some money left to live, or they have partners who can support themselves, or they have some other possibilities. For example, they can go back to their motherland and this kind of thing. So still, I would like to just mention that we have different levels of precariousness within the project, and there are different stories. And I think that actually this ontology and living single, living with children, with being caregiver for many people, or just caring about yourself is a very important. But another thing I would like to mention is that I think in this project we can have a look at global emotional regimes or global emotional patterns which we can observe. And I think that in these patterns, class is more important than some cultural peculiarities. So what we see that being PhD and academic professor in London or in St. Petersburg is pretty much relevant experience. I think that we should really look deeper into how emotions are connected with class, and this is this kind of material which can give us well, a good soil for that. So we have just a couple of minutes left, so I would
Yes,
like
and
to.
could I add
Yes.
something? I think this is very important, and I agree that class matters more than nationality in this case. It's not so important to be Russian, but it's important to belong to an academic circle and to be like transnational academicians. This is very interesting and not so predictable in a sense.
Yes,
Thank you.
I think that we will have some more insights later on, because now we're deep in this material. We are ourselves, we are also participants, not only the moderators of this project. So I think we will have some deeper ideas a bit later, when we can just turn these stories into data. So we will be very happy if some of you who are listening to this podcast will communicate with us and share your stories, share your projects, which are also dedicated to diaries or to some academic experiences under pandemic conditions. So please email us or write to organizers of this podcast, so they could communicate us with you. And thank you for your attention. Anna?
Thank you so much, and I hope that we will discuss this more. Thank you.
Thank you.